What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. It is the preview edition. We're coming to you with two special episodes here over Friday and Saturday. We're live with the preview. We'll give our pick here at the end of this episode. And then we are live tomorrow night, Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway in Amherst, New York. Come out. We're going to be hanging out, watching the two games tomorrow, and we're also going to give our final thoughts podcast. So save a couple things for that one. We'll have some fans involved. It's going to be a good time. Come out, party at Wingnuts. They have great wings, great drink specials. It's going to be an awesome time. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Tops.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. And listen, the chicken deal is still on at Tops. Buy a 5 to 6 pound pack of chicken, get 7 items for free. But I'm eyeing next week's already in terms of their ad, Matt. I'm going to be up in Buffalo Sunday morning. Might have to get some breakfast at Tops. Ooh. They have all-day breakfast in this week's ad. Buy one, get one free. Hatfield, original hardwood smoked bacon, eggs, 2 for $7. Have you seen the price of eggs lately? That is a steal. Fresh fruit cups. You and I hit the fruit hard at the stadium when we're there for those early 1 p.m. kickoffs. Not so much this time with the 6:30. Chobani, Greek yogurt, 10 for $10. Can't go wrong there. Bagels, buy one, get one free. Thomas's Bagels. Coffee Mate Coffee Creamer, 2 for $6 after using an e-coupon. And Tim Hortons Coffee, $5.99 for some coffee grounds.
Wow. I mean, I'm just marveling at you because that's amazing. Thank you so much for that amazing read. All right, Bills versus Ravens. It's almost here, Ryan Talbot. I mean, we don't have to wait any longer. Well, we got to wait 48 more hours. But where do you want to start? Because for me, so much is made about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And I think where I've landed on this, rightfully so, is that I think the expectation should be you're going to get A-plus performances from both guys. They're the MVP front runners. They've had this tremendous season. They're both coming up with great plays, elite decision-making, really balanced attack, understanding what their play caller, Todd Monken and Joe Brady, want to do on a down-to-down, game-to-game basis. And I think it's, the piece of it to me that's been so special about both of their seasons has been their ability to take care of the football. And so I think that's where I want to start is you look at Lamar Jackson in this run game. We're going to talk about the defense, everything we've heard this week from them and how they match up against them. And then you look at Josh Allen, who was under siege against this defense in week 4. Who do you think is better positioned to take care of the football in this game? Because if you think about it, when it comes to playoff football, Josh Allen has been elite at taking care of the football, and that hasn't necessarily been Lamar.
Yeah, in terms of football protection, I'm going to take the Bills all day long in terms of that argument. I mean, I don't know if the Ravens necessarily know what they're in for with this weather. They're kind of playing it off that it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to factor into the outcome of this game. But, 12 degrees, -3 degree real field, the ball's going to be a little bit slippery at times. And it could lead to some passes that bounce off of hands. It can lead to some punch outs with the ball in terms of the run too. So I just feel like the Bills have become acclimated to this weather. They're used to it. They've played a lot of playoff football over the last few years, December football games at home. They know the expectations. They're very careful with the football. They don't turn it over very often. So, you look at this and they're playing off the conditions. Their special teams coordinator thinks that it's a heated field. They're going to be, it's turf on top of cement, by the way. It's going to hurt.
So we thought Matthew Smiley's seat was hot.
Yeah.
Just wait. If they lose this game, that guy, first interview John Harbaugh does is like, you don't even know if the field was heated or not.
Yeah, I don't know what they're expecting with Highmark Stadium having a heated field, but that is not the case at all. Let me tell you that. So I just think with the weather, the way they're downplaying it, it would not shock me if the Bills won the turnover battle. And, you mentioned at the top, you're going to get great performance out of Josh Allen, out of Lamar Jackson. Allen especially has never really had a dud in the playoffs. He has always kept the team in every single game, worn the Superman cape when needed. But this year, hopefully, it's more of the same with the everyone eats mantra. Jackson obviously has not had the postseason success of Allen, but we've seen this year how he's really evolved. His passing has taken that next step. He's been great with having Derrick Henry. But for me, it's going to come down to who else can make plays. You have Derrick Henry there in Baltimore. You have James Cook in Buffalo. I just think that someone else has to be able to come up and make a few plays, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball or someone we're not factoring in on offense, because that's what this game could come down to.
One of the stats that I saw this week, and there's been so much conversation about this game, it's impossible not to just be over inundated with all of the information that's kind of out there on this game. But the one thing that Baltimore does better than any team in this league outside of running the ball, because they're number one in all of those statistics too, is throwing in the short passing game. And Lamar Jackson on passes, I think from 5 yards and in, is completing them at 80% clip. And their success rate on those throws because of the playmakers is so high. And so you think about, all right, Zay Flowers is likely not going to be playing this game. He's listed as doubtful. You think Derrick Henry so much. It's funny. He's played at Highmark Stadium twice in his career. I sent this out to insiders. He hasn't had a lot of success on the road in Buffalo. Now, that was Tennessee. He didn't have Lamar Jackson as quarterback. So all these variables, you kind of throw them out when we get to the game on Sunday. But I think that the short area passing game with the tight ends, especially Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and Likely will attack down the field too. But then also Justice Hill, who had a really good game against them in week 4. It's not just about stopping Derrick Henry or limiting him, which you have to do. That's like no doubt about it, got to do it. But you can't let them sustain drives with some of the things they could do on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 15, where the Bills have struggled this season in the short passing game.
Yeah, and it's not even on those longer distances. I watched the Ravens game last week. They had some 3rd and manageables, and Lamar was able to go through all of his reads, and if no one downfield was open, he would just drop it off right at the line of gain, and it just felt like it was way too easy. The Bills, will they mix in some more man? Are they going to stick to zone? What are they going to do? The time's going to tell on that, but they have to be a little stickier on 3rd downs, making sure that they can get the Ravens off the field, because if you just keep letting them plod down the field and hope for a turnover, you're not guaranteed for that to happen. Just like we were concerned about last week, where the Bills came out and answered all those questions about 3rd down stops versus the 3 and outs of the Broncos. The Bills have to be really good again on 3rd down, just like they were 1 week ago.
Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're listening on all of the audio platforms, make sure you leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you think of the show. We really appreciate it. I want to talk about like a little side conversation before we dive too deep into the Derrick Henry matchup, which I want to really flesh out here, and how we think the Bills can be successful in defending him. Mm-hmm. Where are you ranking the legacy game factor in this one? If I were to throw to you, John Harbaugh's got a Super Bowl already, so I feel like you throw him out of the mix. Where are you ranking this as a legacy game for Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Sean McDermott, and Josh Allen? Like, what's the order for you and how it kind of gets figured out? For me, Derrick Henry's been one of the most dominant forces at the running back position in his career, and I think that it's just been limited in terms of talent around him in Tennessee. So I'm going to put him at number 4 for me on the list. Number 3, I got Josh Allen, because I think he's been as good, if not better, than every other quarterback in playoff history. He's got the top passer rating. He's got 28 career touchdowns in 11 career games, and I think it's only 6 turnovers total. He's been spectacular. Lamar Jackson, the narrative on him is shrinking in these big games. So I feel like if he was to lose this game, this is perhaps going to put him in a place where it's going to be another offseason of vitriol thrown his ways. The talking heads are going to really, probably let him have it. I mean, I don't know how you let Josh Allen, outside of a horrible performance, let him have it when I think a lot of people thought this was going to be a step back year for the Bills. So I'm putting Lamar Jackson at 1, and I'm putting Sean McDermott at 2. And the reason I'm going to put him at 2 and not at 1 is because if it doesn't go well for him, this has been we don't remember this like so much at this point in the season. It's a rebuilding year more for the defense almost than the offense. They got rid of Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, remade that entire back part of their secondary, right? They didn't have Matt Milano for most of the year. They had to develop Dorian Williams. You get him back late, a little bit rusty, starting to come on. I wrote about that today. You can read that at New York Upstate and Syracuse.com. But I just think that there's so many more variables to the Bills season where there's built-in, I don't want to say excuses, but reasons for why maybe they don't have enough to beat the Ravens. We'll get to our picks later today. This was supposed to be a retooling year. And I think if you look past this season, the window shrinks for Baltimore. Doesn't it feel like that? Because you have Derrick Henry at 30 years old. It's only going to probably go downhill from here, and they're going to lose some pieces in the offseason. The Bills are going to have all this money. They have all this draft capital to kind of reload into what is already kind of worked. Now, I talked about this on Buffalo Kickoff Live. The one thing about next season and the outlook for the Bills, Joe Brady might be gone if he gets a head coaching job. And we'll talk about that in the offseason. But how do you have this thing stacked out? For me, it's Lamar, Sean, Josh, Derek.
I'm going to go Sean number one, and not so much if the Bills lose this game. It's a legacy game for him if they win because of the reasons you mentioned. This is a reset year. Those are the words that Brandon Beane used after the Stephon Diggs trade. People forget, or some people forget, that Stephon Diggs had like this guaranteed money locked in and before they traded him. So it felt like, nope, no moves happening. All of a sudden, there it is. And Brandon Beane said, is our roster better now than it was after the trade? No, but we're going to try to make it as competitive as possible. They didn't say rebuild. They didn't say this was a lost season, but they were hedging their bets going into this year. And, the Bills get blown out by this Ravens team in week 4. You go into this playoff game. Sean McDermott says as soon as that Denver game was over, he went into the office, started preparing for this one. If he can come out and defeat the team that beat him by 25 in the regular season, and get the Bills to the AFC Championship game for the second time in his career, that does a lot for his legacy. And while I think his seat is as cold as possible from the ownership perspective, from the fan base, there is a lot of anger if the Bills go out this weekend again in a divisional round, failing to get by this round for, another year. They've only been to the championship once. They're wasting Josh Allen's career. So for those reasons, I'm going to put McDermott number 1, Lamar Jackson number 2. If Lamar wins this is a big game for him because he has come up short in the playoffs multiple times where the defense has held the team to fewer than 20, but he can't put up more than 13 points pretty much on average in these big games. I put him at number 2, though, because even if he is able to defeat the Bills and the Ravens are able to defeat the Bills, there's still another big game the following weekend before the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think anything short of the Super Bowl this year for the Ravens, where after that Henry signing, and I know they lost 5 games in the regular season, they were looked at as the Super Bowl favorites and high expectations. They were the 1 seed the year before. This is a lot riding on the Ravens, not just making it to the championship game, but making it to the Super Bowl. So if he gets by this first one, great. That certainly helps him out. Great for him, that is. It helps out his legacy a little bit too. I'll put Henry number 3. Henry and Allen are interchangeable in terms of the whole legacy aspect of it, because when I look at Henry, I look at the teams he's had to play with in Tennessee up until this point. He's made some big games, big plays at times with them. They just didn't have enough talent overall to make a serious run in any of those postseason teams. And for Josh Allen, Allen, as I said earlier, has always had this team in position to win games. He had them with the 13 seconds against the Chiefs a few years ago. He had them in line to tie the game last year against KC. He plays some of his best games come playoff time. He's always putting together these great performances. I expect more of the same. If the Bills don't win this one, I don't really think it affects his legacy whatsoever.
No, I think it's a good list and some good rationale there. And the Sean McDermott point that you brought up at the top is a really important one. This is a legacy game for him. And I like the fact you pushed him up to number 1 because of the positive side potential. Right. I mean, this is different than in 2020 when Lamar Jackson was this guy that won the MVP the year before and was really kind of stepping up to the top spot in the league in terms of scary weapons. Even at that time, it was even a little bit more than Josh Allen because he had the MVP in 2019. Mahomes was obviously at the top, but it was Lamar had entered the chat and everybody didn't know how to stop him. And McDermott's defense really shut him down in that playoff game. And that could potentially be the kind of springboard that I think sends them potentially on a Super Bowl run. And I said this on Gene and Danger earlier this week. I think the winner of this game is going to the Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm there yet saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl. I do think that's down the line. There's so much that could happen over the course of the next couple of weeks, depending on how that goes. But I like what what the matchups are for both of these teams because of the physicality on offense and the familiarity of what the Chiefs do on offense. And I know, hey, maybe they come out and they blow out the Texans 40-3, and that changes the conversation, and we'll see. We can only go off the regular season. The piece for me that I think this week that has kind of bugged me is that the national conversation, I think there's been a lot of really good podcast analysis of this game. But my pushback to a lot of it is we're spending so much of it creating our vision for Sunday in this game based on a week 4 game when the Bills hadn't even begun to remake their offense. They were without their 3 huge key pieces on defense. And I want to bring up this quote, and I know I wrote about it and it's been talked about a ton this week, but it's really important, I think. I asked Micah Hyde, those 3 guys are out. What does that mean? And he said, that's 3 of the 5 signal callers on defense that are making all the calls. When some guys are out, that communication sense needs to be, you need to have that camaraderie to be able to practice and all that type of stuff. So when guys are out, it just might not be the same. Like it wasn't with Balin Spector and Nicholas Morrow playing 16 snaps. So that's tough to go into a game with 3 middle-level guys not being able to communicate. And obviously our starters are some dogs too. And Hyde kind of giggled a little bit. And to me, that's a key factor because what the defense for the Bills is predicated on is penetration, like we saw at times in that game, but then also the second level beating the bigger, bulkier blocks and being able to get bodies to Derrick Henry. And there just wasn't enough of that in that first game. This week, these guys have been in the lab. I mean, Matt Milano doesn't say much regularly, so I guess we can't extrapolate too much from that. But Terrell Bernard is locked in as I've ever seen him. He's healthy. He told me the quad injury feels 100%. To me, that's what makes me think it's going to be a little bit different and harder on Derrick Henry on Sunday.
Yeah, I really feel like this is a coin flip type of game. This is not going to be a blowout type that we saw in week 4, in my opinion. Obviously, I could be proven wrong on that come on Sunday night, one way or the other, with the Bills blowing out the Ravens or vice versa. But they're in such a much better spot on defense with, like you said, the players that are not going to be on the field versus the players that are going to be on the field. And no knock on Balin Spector, but that's a tall task, asking him to come in here and play such a big role in such a pivotal game. Nicholas Morrow, who has been released twice since that game by the Bills, playing meaningful reps. Maybe not feeling like Von Miller was back at a point where he was even healthy enough to play, or maybe they didn't like the game plan of having him on the field, only having him out there for 9 snaps. No Matt Milano, and that list goes on and on. They lost Rapp at one point in that game. They're healthy. They're all going to be out there. That doesn't mean that the Ravens can't have some explosive plays or big plays from time to time, but I do feel like the defense is going to be lined up where they need to be more times than not. They're going to be more competitive in terms of making plays on the ball, forcing stops, making the Ravens, really earn those points that they may get as they go up and down the field. If they're lucky enough to do so. So I like the way that this Bills team is faring going into this game. Big potential loss for the Ravens without Zay Flowers, listed as doubtful, as you mentioned. He does play a big role in their play action pass game. He's the separator at wide receiver. They still have a lot of talent there with Bateman playing the way that he is, the 2 tight ends with Andrews and Isaiah Likely. But that's a big loss. So going into this game in terms of losses, there's a much bigger loss on the side of the Ravens going into this one than there is on Buffalo's side.
I mentioned Matt Milano doesn't say much. Ed Oliver doesn't typically say a ton either, but it was interesting when he was asked this week about what went wrong in the first one, and he went right to that first play. And he basically said, listen, they ran the wham play, they ran the trap play over and over again. The Bills weren't ready for it, especially Oliver, who, if you go back and watch that specific play, Patrick Ricard was kind of lined up to his right in kind of like offset formation there with the 2 backs in the backfield. And he comes downhill and blows up Ed Oliver. This is a 300-pound fullback. This is not your traditional fullback. Blows him up, creates that wide open lane, and Derrick Henry runs untouched through it and all the way to the house. I think sometimes there is an element that we forget with professional sports where, you can know something and know what you have to do, but even when you get out there, some things can still surprise you no matter how much you prepare for it. And so I think that's an advantage on the Bill side, is like being out there, seeing the speed from both these guys, like I would hate this matchup 10 times more for the Bills defense had they not played the Ravens in the regular season and not had all of those reps that they can go through where, you got to look at what it's like to go up against Lamar and Derek in the same backfield. And, I asked Dorian Williams, he had a great quote that is in my story up at the website right now. And I asked him about it because he played really well in that game, right? If you go back and look, when the Bills started to kind of really get things figured out after the 3 touchdowns, Dorian Williams was making plays. He was flying around. He was making some big hits. I think we'll see Dorian Williams in that 3 linebacker set more times than usual this weekend, but we'll see. And I said, what have you been saying to other guys? Bernard didn't play in that game, Milano. And he said, you can't be scared of it, bro. You got to go in there, get chest to chest. Yeah, get him down whatever way you think you can. Get his ass down and live to play another down. You're going to either be like the hammer or the nail. Get downhill. I always tell the guys to get to the ball. Somebody may have to nut up and 2-gap something. So, I mean, in his mind right now, Dorian Williams is getting ready to go be physical and play against Derrick Henry, but that's the mindset you have to have. I think all of them, even the undersized guys at the second level, third level, Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin, you just have to be ready for 4 quarters of physicality.
100%. And this is not something where you can let Henry get going. We talked about this earlier in the week. When you give him a few steps to kind of get moving, if he gets past that first line of defense, he's off to the races. He's almost a guy that you can almost not tackle. So you have to hit him early. You have to hit him while he's plotting and taking those first few steps. Even if you don't get him to the ground, you're going to hopefully slow him down enough that a teammate can come in and rally and make the play. But tackling is going to be the biggest key to this game, in my opinion. You have to be sure tacklers when it comes to Henry and obviously Lamar Jackson, too, trying to contain him and also take him down so he can't rip off multiple big plays using his legs.
You are watching Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. We're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets, and you can become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider by texting 716-528-6727. You get a 2-week free trial, which take advantage of it right now. No better time. No matter what happens on Sunday, that insider text line is going to be buzzing over the next week and more into the offseason and potentially into more of a Bills playoff run. You could also go to joinsubtext.com/Shout Buffalo Bills. The Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give him a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. All right, so the Bills have the ball. The pressure rate was really good for the Baltimore Ravens in week 4. I think that the kind of run that the Bills offensive line had to end the season, and we're talking about against some really good fronts. We're talking about the Rams. We're talking about the Detroit Lions. I even think New England, the Jets with Quinnen Williams last week against the Denver Broncos, who had the best front in the league. It's different. Like Baltimore is a much bigger defensive line. They're built a little bit differently. But I think that's one of the keys to this game is, can the Bills bully the Ravens front, which I think is a really tall task because they are so big and physical to be able to run the ball, especially when they want to go 6 offensive linemen. They didn't do that a ton in the first matchup. Maybe it's because of the size and they thought they had to, try to beat them with some speed. That didn't necessarily work. How do you feel like Joe Brady's going to dial this thing up against this Ravens defense? And who are like the 2 or 3 difference makers that you have to know about when you're going up against this Ravens D?
Well, first of all, in terms of what I think he's going to dial up, I think you are going to see some more of the extra offensive linemen with Alec Anderson. They're going to try to win on the ground. Allen's very successful passing out of that as well. He won't be afraid. He's never afraid to run the ball, but he's an option to run the ball in those situations as well. So that's the first thing I see the Bills doing a little bit differently is playing their game, trying to take it to the Ravens. They know that they need to be able to prove that they can, move the ball on the ground just like the Ravens did against them in that first matchup. And then you have to look for those, favorable matchups. Stevens is a cornerback for the Ravens that has been picked on time and time again down the stretch of the regular season, a little bit in the playoffs. You saw the Steelers even targeting him a lot in that playoff game. The Bills have to know where he is at all times, try to create some matchups where you feel good about throwing it in his direction. You don't just not throw it in the direction of Marlon Humphrey and these other guys. We know Josh Allen is fearless in that area, but try to find the matchups where you feel you're at your best. And We saw, Mac Hollins have a great rep against Patrick Surtain II last week, and we've seen Curtis Samuel emerge. We're waiting on that big Amari Cooper game. Maybe this is it. The Bills have enough guys where I think that Joe Brady can move players around, get guys on and off the field, and create some favorable matchups. That includes your backs as pass catchers like James Cook and Ty Johnson as well.
Ty Johnson had a really nice touchdown run in the first game against them where he kind of faked it like he was going to run in between the tackle and the guard, and then he just turned on the jets, got to the outside. I think both of those guys are going to play a factor in this game, and I wouldn't be afraid to throw the ball to Cook and Ty Johnson in this game. I know James Cook is such a big part of what they do in the run game, and you don't want to forget about that and do what brought you to the dance, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I think he could be an even bigger part of the passing game. I think on the outside, to your point, Stevens is somebody that I think they're going to target. I think this could be a Keon Coleman game to get him going. Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman had a nice catch in that first game, and I think that he could kind of replicate some of that. But I'm also looking at Dalton Kincaid. Like, he looks healthy. He looks like he's moving around quickly. And if you're the Ravens at this point in the season and you're preparing for this Bills offense, I don't know if Dalton Kincaid is very high up on your priority list, right? Like, it's something that you can probably, I don't want to say surprise them with. I think Dawson Knox can have a role in this game as well. Curtis Samuel broke out last week, maybe a play or two from him. But to me, that's going to be the big thing. And no matter what, you cannot turn the ball over in this game at home. And the other piece of it too, we'll get to this part in a minute. Any other thoughts on the offense?
No, offensively, I think he nailed it. Quick passes to Khalil Shakir as well. We saw 1 or 2 last week. I think that can work against this defense. Take advantage of the Ravens' aggressiveness at times. Try to offset that and see if you can get some explosive plays out of it.
Indeed. All right. Almost 30 minutes in. We're doing 30 today, 30 tomorrow, Saturday night, live from Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway. It is going to be a great party. 2 weeks in a row. The playoff party is always happening at Wingnuts, and Shout Live will be going down there tomorrow night. Come out, join the show, drink some beers, eat some wings. Ryan Talbot's family is going to be there. My family's going to be there. It's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, I cannot wait for tomorrow night at Wingnuts. Great crowd last week. Expecting another one, a great crowd again tomorrow night.
All right. Prediction time. Ryan Talbot. I'll let you start.
Okay. So I've heard some great stats this week, Matt. Josh Allen, 12-2 as an underdog. The Ravens, 8.5 penalties this week versus slightly over 6 at home this year. So big difference there. Buffalo's success with Carl, the officiating crew in terms of how they fared over the years with this crew as well. The favorite stat that I received was from an insider. The Bills are 6-1 when I pick against them. So I'm going to say Baltimore Ravens 27-24 in this game and try to push this one to 7-1 for the sake of the Bills Mafia. That was my favorite stat. Over the last 2 years, the Bills are 6-1 when I pick against them. So Ravens 27, Bills 24. I do expect this to be a coin flip type of game. I think it's going to go down potentially to who has the ball last in their hands. I think both of these teams, like you said, can make a run all the way to the Super Bowl, potentially win this game. This is the game of the weekend. It's why they put it at that 6:30 time spot on Sunday night, and I cannot wait to be there to watch how it all unfolds.
Did that insider tell you how they came to those numbers? Was it something that every week do they write down who you picked, or did they go back in all the shows at the end?
I'm wondering if they went back and just were watching. It's fascinating, though.
Yeah, we need some details on that, so send that along. Also, speaking of the insiders, shout out to our good buddy David, who sent us a couple more T-shirts. Yes. He made the original logo that we wear on our shirts for those live events. They put together another one, sent it out. We're gonna wear them on Saturday night. I cannot wait. That's really cool of you, David. All right, so a couple things are key for me in this game. Number one, I think Josh Allen has to be a really good runner, but I don't think it's going to come out of the design run game. I think they're up front. They're really good. I think there's linebackers move sideways, sideline to sideline. Marlon Humphrey is really good in the box, as is Kyle Hamilton. I know they've moved him back, but I wonder if they don't sprinkle him in the box a little bit because they had so much success in the first game with that. So I think that's going to be a factor as well. To me, I just feel that the disrespect that's kind of permeating right now outside the building is going to be one motivating factor. And I think people forget, for as good as the Ravens were in the regular season, the Bills were just as good, if not better. Those big time signature wins over the Kansas City Chiefs, over the Detroit Lions, they hold up. And listen, Baltimore had the big win over Buffalo in week 4. You can't take that away from them, but they weren't whole. They weren't even really the same team they are going to be on Sunday. I see Amari Cooper working with DJ Magnus every Friday. They're out on the practice field running through routes. Like, he has changed the math so much for what this offense can be. And here's the big thing. The Bills are so good at running out of jumbo personnel. I think they can be great in this matchup with a curveball throwing out of it, throwing like explosive plays out of it. When you bring everybody down, when you go single safety to attack down the field with your ball winners, specifically Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper, there's opportunities. And here's the other factor for me. Joe Brady all season long has been elite. I think it's why he's got so many head coaching interviews at adjusting. And the Bills have to adjust off of everything this defense did in the first matchup and find ways to exploit them in the second matchup. Final thought before prediction. Sorry. Special teams to me is critical in this game. Not only like making kicks, not having any bad formations or penalties or botched special teams plays, field position, Ryan. You cannot allow the Ravens to start at the 35, 40, 45, 50 and beyond and give them short fields. They will eat that up. If you win the field position battle and you somehow find a way to keep that time of possession battle close to 50-50 or win it. To me, those are a couple under the radar key ingredients. I think Sam Martin is a huge key piece in this game. He's had a great season. He's got to continue potentially in some elements to deliver in a big way. At the end of the day, I think the Bills do it, Ryan. I was not picking the Bills on Monday. I watched that Ravens game and I've watched them all season, and there's the destructive way that Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson have been this season, but I'm banking on a big game at home, Lamar's history in the playoffs, the defensive vibes right now. And I think the Bills win 27-19. I know that might be a little bit of a bold take because I know a lot of people think the Ravens are going to score points, but I do think they score 3 touchdowns, go for 2 on 1, don't make it, miss an extra point. Justin Tucker's been really bad this season for the most part. Kicking could come into play, but I got the Bills winning it.
Love it, Matt. My final thought was right in line with yours. It's going to be special teams play, making sure no punts get blocked. Any of Sam Martin's punts get blocked. He does hold it a little bit longer. They have to be stout up front. I know that Harbaugh and company are probably sitting there looking for ways to try to get home and make a big play on special teams. He has to make sure he gets all those kicks off. The punts that he does get off, fair catch opportunities, or making sure that your guys are flying down the field to make plays like we saw last week with Mac Hollins, what he did to Mims on that play. The kicking game is going to be very interesting because, as you mentioned, there's been some ups and downs in both campaigns for the Ravens and the Bills this year in terms of the kickers. So, and with the punt returns, the Bills can get a few and flip the field position. That will loom large in the outcome of this game.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Shout. Man, get to Tops, get yourself a breakfast pizza, start the day right. Go put on Channel 4 in Western New York and throughout New York State, whatever the CBS affiliate will be down at the stadium doing Buffalo Kickoff Live. Bills Ravens at 6:30. We'll be live on Shout no matter what happens after the game. And then, of course, come out Saturday night, tomorrow night, 24 hours, Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway. Send him out of here, Ryan Talbot.
Yeah, join us tomorrow night and consider becoming an insider. 2 weeks, like Matt said, there's going to be a lot to talk about, whether it's the AFC Championship game or the offseason that looms. Consider joining us on the Outsider text line. See us tomorrow night and watch us after the game. Bills-Ravens, Sunday, 6 p.m. CBS.
The Outsider text line. New world order.